Hello, my name is Kirioth, and today we're going to talk more Primaris Civil War. And I know what you're thinking, before you turn the video off, we already covered this on Monday. What else is there to talk about? Why is this still a subject? Well, it's because it's actually an expanded thing from what we talked about on Monday. Monday we talked about the Dark Angels and their Primaris counterparts coming to blows due to a complete clash of culture and just all round, well, it's Dark Angels, isn't it? What do you expect? The whole secrecy thing, you know, not trusting people around them, it kind of goes with the chapter, and that's not going to sit well with the Primaris, and the Primaris not going to sit well with Dark Angels, so they have a bit of a fight. Fantastic, that's actually what I want to see. I want to see conflict between Primaris and Original Space Marines. I want to see conflict between different Primaris chapters as they decide what they are and who they are in relation to the rest of the Imperium. That would be awesome, and we're already on our way there, which is good. But now we have like something a little bit more, a little different, but similar. I think maybe the other side of the same coin. So, in the Devastation of Baal, there is conversation between Gabriel Seth, the chapter master of the Flesh Tearers, and Dante, the chapter master of the Blood Angels. Dante? I flip between the two. Look, you already know I can't pronounce anything ever, so let's not make a big deal about it. He says, having just made a big deal about it. And the thing I'm finding interesting about this is that it's a little bit different in that Dante is actually quite happy about Guilliman turning up with a bunch of Primaris. He's happy about the prospect of the Blood Angels ranks being swelled again with an influx of new, superior Space Marines. He is happy about the prospect of the actual flaw that makes the Blood Angels what they are possibly being fixed, there being no more chance of just going off your face and getting all thirsty for blood and all angry in that, which on the face of it you can understand. I mean, after all, it's an instability that causes the Blood Angels no end of problems. They have an entire group of troops that is just made up of people who suffer from that flaw. You know, they've got the Death Company. You lose your mind, you get put in the Death Company. That's how it works. He quite likes the idea of, hey, maybe we don't have to deal with that anymore. Maybe we can just be Space Marines. Gabriel Seth, on the other hand, no, he's not having that. He's not having that at all. He believes that flaw is what makes the Blood Angels what they are, what makes the Flesh Tearers what they are. It's that fight with that flaw that makes them the warriors that they are. And so they disagree. And what we're going to do is we're not going to focus entirely on that, okay? Because that's, you're better off just reading the book. But what I want to do is take those two different instances, and then we're going to do something that I always enjoy doing with 40k, that I always really like doing with 40k, which is wild speculation, right? So, in the case of the Dark Angels, we have old school Marines versus new Marines. Clash of culture, a clash of ideals, a clash of just the way that they've been trained, the way that they react to things around them, their attitudes in general. Then with the Blood Angels, you've got an interesting contrast in views between two old school Marines, Dante and Gabriel Seth. That's really cool, because that opens up a massive load of possibilities when it comes to both the lore and the tabletop for the Primaris Marines. Now, what we're about to talk about is just pure speculation. I've no sources, I've not read this, it's not a rumour, it's nothing. It is just us basically brainstorming about what could happen here, where things could go, how things could change in the Imperium as a whole, centred around the Space Marines and the Primaris, and what these little bits of story could eventually lead up to. Because I think now, having kind of gone off on one at Games Workshop before about making Primaris a bit too bland, a bit too Mary Sue, a bit too, oh, they're perfect, they're fixing everything, I will concede that I think I may well have spoken too soon, because I think I didn't have enough faith in what they were willing to do story-wise, lore-wise, for the Primaris. Now I'm actually thinking that they might well do what I really wanted them to do, which is to actually use it to explore kind of the rifts and the disagreements in the Imperium as a whole. Kind of bringing all that kind of clash of ideals together. And with the stuff that's in Devastation of Baal and the kind of infighting with the Dark Angels, I think maybe if we're lucky, we might actually start to see the Primaris actually develop some personality of their own, because that's the other thing. The Primaris have been... Some people think they've been bland model-wise. I actually don't think they've been bland model-wise. I think they've been modern, which I know some people don't like, but they still look like Space Marines to me. They just look like slightly less constipated, squatty Space Marines to me. Personality-wise, though, it's just not quite been there. You know, there's not really been anything to latch on to for me. There's not really been anything that makes them stand out, or that what makes them particularly interesting. I think now, with what we've seen about the Dark Angels, what we're seeing about the Blood Angels, and hopefully what we'll see about Space Wolves, because Space Wolves have their own issues with Primaris, and they have their own problems in terms of, you know, gene seed flaws and so on. What I'm hoping will come from this, and it is just hope, it is just speculation, I'm hoping we'll see more in the way of actual civil war. And I'm starting to think that that's more of a possibility now. Before, I thought it was a possibility of new Marines versus old Marines. With the Blood Angel stuff, I'm kind of hoping that there's some extreme examples whereby chapters will go to war with each other over whether they are prepared to accept Primaris or not. Because again, that would add an extra element to all of this. It would add an extra layer of personality to all of this. It would also do something to actually make it so the Imperium is not quite as well off as it's being presented at the moment. Because again, that's another one of my issues, where you can't just introduce this big force into the Imperium that seems to be, on the face of it, just vastly superior to all of the chaos stuff they've faced so far, and then just go, oh yeah, but the Imperium's still struggling. No, you can't do that. You need something to offset it. Old Marines fighting Primaris, that does something to offset it. It's a waste of troops, it's a waste of lives, it's a waste of combat ability, having forces of the Imperium fighting each other, especially when it comes to Space Marines. I mean, Space Marines they're relatively few in number, given the size of the Imperium. They're not to be squandered, they're not just to be thrown away in kind of petty squabbles. And yet, that could be what we actually end up seeing. It's the same thing with, you know, actually proper established old chapters, Blood Angels and Flesh Tearers. If we had chapters actually prepared to vouch for, prepared to lay down their lives to defend the Primaris that are bolstering their ranks, that are saving their chapters from annihilation, against chapters that refuse to accept these new troops, that refuse to accept these new Space Marines, again, it offsets that misbalance that the Imperium, I think, currently has. Because again, it's a waste of time, it's a waste of resources, it's a waste of lives, it's a waste of combat experience. To have Space Marines who previously fought together, fighting each other, because you gave them reinforcements of new, better Space Marines, it sounds, on the face of it, and if it's not explained properly, it would seem kind of reactionary and stupid. Like, well, why are they doing that? But if that clash of culture, if that clash of ideals is written well, we could actually see the Primaris Marines not just being a blanket force for good, but a blanket, just a force. In a way, a neutral force. Not something that is doing everything to save the Imperium, not something that's going to bring the Imperium down, but something that is introduced and doesn't really change the status quo, because all they've done is patch one problem, or patch a couple of problems, and create the same number of problems in a different way. Something else that both of these things have kind of left me hoping for is actual proper specific, like chapter specific Primaris Marines. Okay, so at the moment, the Primaris Marines look like Primaris Marines. They all look pretty much the same. There's no variation in kit. There is no kind of... Well, there's no variation in kit, really. They just do what they do. I would really, really, really like to see, based off the back of all of this, Primaris Marines that have more of a focus on things like close combat. And I'm not talking about Reavers. I know Reavers exist. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the rank and file Primaris taking more of an interest in close combat. That would be totally reasonable for me to see Blood Angels Primaris have the option of taking a chainsword and bolt pistol. That would make sense. Same thing with Space Wolves. I'd really like to see chapter specific Primaris stuff come out, where you know, the models are changed. We have more in the way of chapter. We actually have chapter iconography. That'd be nice. We have things like different weapons options. Maybe not to the same like degree as tactical marines. I'm not suggesting that Primaris marines just become tactical marines, whereby they can have a special weapon and a heavy weapon and so on and so forth. But if you could have for certain chapters the option to swap out all the bolters with close combat weapons, that would be a step towards giving them more personality. If they could in some ways be introduced into other tactical squads. Like, you're not telling me that there are chapters out there who would accept Primaris marines and then just go, well, Gilliman says they should only be in squads of Primaris marines, so that's what we're going to do. Come on. There are chapters out there who just go, no, why would we do that? We're not doing that. They can be dispersed amongst the rest of the marines like anyone else. We're going to treat them as normal space marines because that's what they should be. I want to see more stuff like that, and the more stuff we see now, like with the last couple of books, where the Primaris are actually shown to be having a negative impact, not just a positive impact, but an actual negative impact in some senses, the closer I am to thinking that Games Workshop aren't just going to drop them on us, go, this is great and this is how it is. I feel like we're actually going to get what I've hoped for since the beginning, really, which is that for all the Primaris do good, Primaris also do bad. You know, for every Ultramarines where they're just accepted with open arms, and if there's any sort of kind of, you know, if any old Marines are like, oh, I don't like this, they just deal with it and get on with it. I want to see more Dark Angels reactions, where you have that complete clash of ideals. I want to see more in the way of Blood Angels and Flesh Tearers, where chapters that have worked together for centuries are now looking at each other going, I can't believe you accept this. Or alternatively, I can't believe you won't accept this. We need more of that. We need more of that negative stuff. And the fact we're getting more of that negative stuff is genuinely promising. Because if they take it and they run with it and they make it a Imperium-wide issue, not just an isolated issue here and there, not like, oh, well, this one chapter has had an actual firefight with them. They make it an Imperium-wide issue. If they use that as a way to split the Primaris off into becoming renegades, not necessarily Chaos. I did advocate like the idea of Chaos Primaris, but as someone pointed out, it would be nice if Chaos didn't just have what the Imperium had, but slightly worse. It would be nice if they actually had something a little bit different to that. And actually, I agree with that. I do agree with that. It would be nice if the Primaris still had that Chaos resistance, but Chaos found a way to create something that could fight the Primaris on equal footing. That would be pretty cool. And, you know, in doing that, Primaris could still go off and be renegades. You know, renegades are not necessarily aligned with Chaos. You could have Imperium loyal Primaris who frankly are sick of putting up with the old chapter's nonsense and go off and do their own thing. I'd like to see more of that. I really hope that Games Workshop actually runs with this stuff. I really hope that they actually take this idea of old versus new, and it's not just a perfect fit. Instead, you've got all these different clashes, runs with it, and actually creates a good storyline for this whole thing. Because I think they're close to doing it. And I think the fact that we've got 2 books in close succession that deal with this stuff, I think that's really promising. The question is, what do you think? Do you think they will run with it? Do you think these are going to be 2 isolated examples? Do you think we're going to get a Space Wolves book and that's going to be the end of it? Or do you think they are actually going to properly test the waters with some sort of civil war? Do you think they are actually going to make it so that Primaris can do something different and something unique and actually give them that personality that they seem to be lacking at the moment? Be interested to hear what you think. And I promise Friday's video will not be about Primaris or Civil War. Thank you very much for watching. If you like the video, then click all the stuff and like it. Yeah, press the like thing, you know what it is. And then click all the other stuff if you want to. It's entirely up to you. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Toodaloo.